Subscribe to Storylab for more stories. Now, let's begin this one. Chapter 1. The Breaking Point. Craig Valenzuela had always believed that hard work and dedication were the foundations of a good life. At 34, he'd built a respectable career as a mechanical engineer at a manufacturing firm in Pittsburgh, working long hours to provide for his family. His calloused hands and tired eyes were testaments to his commitment, but nothing compared to the warmth he felt when his 6-year-old daughter Emma ran into his arms each evening. The Valenzuela household sat in a quiet suburb, a modest 2-story home with a backyard where Craig had built Emma a treehouse with his own hands. Every Sunday morning, rain or shine, he'd take her to the park, teaching her to ride bikes, fly kites, or simply sharing ice cream while she chattered about her week at school. But lately, the house felt cold. Tammy Valenzuela, his wife of 8 years, had grown distant over the past 6 months. She'd started working late at her job as a real estate agent, her phone constantly buzzing with messages she'd quickly hide. Craig noticed, but said nothing. He'd been raised by a single father who taught him that trust was sacred in a marriage. "Daddy, why doesn't Mommy eat dinner with us anymore?" Emma asked one evening, her innocent brown eyes searching his face for answers he didn't have. Craig forced a smile, ruffling her dark curls. "Mommy's just busy with work, princess. But we're having fun, right? Just you and me." Emma nodded, but her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Kids knew. They always knew. That night, after tucking Emma into bed with her favorite story about dragons and brave knights, Craig found Tammy in their bedroom, packing a suitcase. "What's going on?" His voice was steady, but his heart hammered against his ribs. Tammy didn't look at him. Her blonde hair fell across her face as she folded clothes with mechanical precision. "I'm leaving, Craig. I can't do this anymore." "Can't do what?" "Our marriage? Our family." She finally met his eyes, and what he saw there chilled him. Not sadness, but cold calculation. "I deserve better than this. Better than living paycheck to paycheck. Better than a husband who smells like grease and metal shavings." Craig's jaw tightened. "I work hard to provide for you and Emma. Everything I do is barely enough." She cut him off. "I'm 31 years old, Craig. I should be living, not just surviving. You'll hear from my lawyer." As she wheeled her suitcase toward the door, Craig's mind raced. "And Emma?" Tammy paused, her back to him. "I'll be fighting for full custody. A girl needs her mother." The door closed behind her with a finality that echoed through the empty house. Craig stood frozen in the hallway for several minutes before his survival instincts kicked in. He pulled out his phone and called the one person he trusted, Jessie Castaneda, his best friend since college. "She's really doing this," Craig said when Jessie answered, his voice hollow. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't do anything stupid." Craig walked to Emma's room and watched his daughter sleep, her tiny chest rising and falling peacefully. The purple night light cast soft shadows across her face. She looked so much like him, the same stubborn chin, the same way her nose crinkled even in sleep. He made a silent promise in that moment. Whatever was coming, he would not let Tammy take his daughter away. Chapter 2. The Accusation. 3 weeks after Tammy left, the papers arrived. Craig had been expecting them, but reading the words on the legal documents felt like swallowing broken glass. Petitioner alleges that the respondent is emotionally unstable, financially irresponsible, and poses a potential danger to the minor child due to anger management issues and possible substance abuse. "This is bullshit," Craig said, slamming the papers on Jeffrey Neal's desk. The lawyer, a sharp-eyed man in his 50s with silver hair, studied the documents with practiced calm. "They're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks," Jeffrey said. "It's a common tactic. The substance abuse claim. Any truth to that? I have a beer on Fridays. Maybe 2. That's it. Anger management issues?" Craig hesitated. "I got into one argument with a neighbor about his dog digging up our yard. Tammy must be twisting that." Jeffrey made notes. "What about financially irresponsible? I make a decent living. We have savings. The mortgage is always paid on time." Craig ran his hands through his dark hair, frustration boiling beneath his careful control. "She spent more on clothes in a month than I spend on myself in a year." "Here's what we're up against," Jeffrey said, leaning back in his chair. Your wife has retained Donnie Juarez. He's a shark. He specializes in making fathers look incompetent. The good news is, you've got the truth on your side. The bad news is, in family court, perception often matters more than reality. Over the next 2 months, Craig's life became a battlefield. Tammy had moved into an upscale apartment downtown, and during her supervised visits with Emma, she showered the girl with toys and treats. Meanwhile, Craig maintained their routine: homework at the kitchen table, bedtime stories, weekend adventures. But Emma was changing. She'd grown quieter, more withdrawn. "Daddy, why does Mommy keep asking me questions about you?" Emma asked one evening while Craig helped her with her math homework. His pen froze mid-calculation. "What kind of questions? Like, does Daddy ever yell? Does Daddy ever drink the grown-up drinks? Does Daddy leave me alone?" Her small voice cracked. "I told her you're the best daddy in the world," but she looked mad. Craig pulled Emma into his lap, fighting to keep his voice steady. "Princess, you just tell the truth always. Okay, no matter what anyone asks you." "Okay, Daddy." But that night, after Emma was asleep, Craig sat in his workshop in the garage, his sanctuary, where he designed and built small mechanical projects. His hands, usually steady, trembled as he gripped his tools. Jessie found him there an hour later, staring at a half-finished birdhouse. "She's coaching Emma," Craig said without preamble, trying to put words in her mouth. Jessie, a stocky man with kind eyes and the build of a former college linebacker, pulled up a stool. "You know what you need to do?" "What? Fight dirty like her?" "No, you need to be smarter." Jessie's voice hardened. "I've known you since we were 18, Craig. You're the guy who could take apart an engine and put it back together blindfolded. You're strategic, so start thinking strategically." Craig looked at his friend. "I'm listening." "Tammy thinks she's got this one. She thinks you're just going to roll over. So let her think that. Meanwhile, you figure out what she's really up to. You think there's more to this than just wanting out?" Jessie's expression was grim. "Brother, when a woman leaves that suddenly, with that much venom, and immediately goes for the jugular in court, there's always more to the story." That conversation sparked something in Craig's mind. The next day, he hired a private investigator, a woman named Miranda Donnelly, who specialized in domestic cases. "I need to know what my wife is hiding," Craig told her. Miranda's steel-gray eyes assessed him. "Preparing for the custody battle, preparing to protect my daughter. Then let's get to work." Chapter 3, The Other Man. Miranda's first report arrived 10 days later, and it confirmed Craig's worst suspicions. The photographs were damning. Tammy entering an expensive downtown condo building. Tammy having intimate dinners at restaurants Craig could never afford. And always, in every photo, the same man beside her, tall, polished, wearing suits that probably cost more than Craig's monthly salary. Vincent Ryan, real estate developer. Net worth in the 8-figure range. "They've been seeing each other for at least 8 months, Miranda said, spreading more photos across Craig's kitchen table after Emma had gone to bed. "He's married too. Wife's name is Natalie Durham Ryan. Comes from old money. They have a prenup that would leave Vincent with almost nothing if she divorces him for infidelity." Craig studied Vincent's face, handsome in that generic country club way. Everything Tammy had said she wanted. Everything Craig wasn't. "Here's where it gets interesting," Miranda continued, pulling out another folder. "Vincent Ryan is the one funding your wife's legal fees. Donnie Juarez doesn't come cheap. So he's buying his way into my family. More than that." Miranda's voice took on an edge. "I did some digging into Vincent's background. 3 years ago, he was involved in a custody case. His ex-girlfriend claimed he was controlling, manipulative. The case settled out of court, sealed records. But I have contacts." She slid another document across the table. Craig read it twice, his blood turning to ice. "He has a pattern," Miranda said. "He targets married women with children, particularly mothers of daughters. The ex-girlfriend had a 5-year-old daughter. There were allegations." "Don't," Craig cut her off, his voice dangerous. "Don't finish that sentence unless you have proof." "I don't have proof, just patterns and sealed records." "But Craig," Miranda's eyes met his, "your daughter needs to be protected." Craig was quiet for a long moment, his engineer's mind processing data, forming connections. "Tammy doesn't know, does she?" About Vincent's past, I doubt it. Men like Vincent are very good at presenting exactly what their target wants to see. After Miranda left, Craig sat alone in the darkness of his kitchen, a storm of rage and determination building in his chest. He thought about Emma's recent quietness, her reluctance to go to Tammy's new apartment for visits. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stop digging into things that don't concern you. Focus on being the best father you can be during your remaining time with Emma. Vincent. Had to be. Craig's response was simple. See you in court. But he had no intention of waiting for court. The next morning, Craig called Jesse and Jeffrey for an emergency meeting at a diner far from his neighborhood. I need you both to hear this, Craig said, sliding Miranda's reports across the table. And then I need your help putting together a plan. Jeffrey reviewed the documents with his lawyer's eye, while Jesse's expression grew darker with each page. This is good intel, Jeffrey finally said. But it's not enough for court. The affair helps us, but judges don't care about adultery in custody cases unless we can prove it directly harms the child. In Vincent's past, sealed records won't fly. Then we make them unseal, Craig said. That could take months, years even. Jesse leaned forward. What if we don't go through official channels? Jeffrey's eyes narrowed. I can't be part of this conversation if you're suggesting. Then step outside for 5 minutes, Craig said, his voice carrying an authority that surprised even himself. Because I'm not losing my daughter to these people. Jeffrey stood, conflicted, then sighed. 5 minutes. And I was never here. He walked outside, leaving Craig and Jesse alone in the booth. Talk to me, Jesse said. Craig pulled out his tablet, opening files he'd been compiling. Vincent Ryan thinks he's untouchable. Rich, connected, can buy his way out of anything. But everyone has pressure points. Go on. His wife, Natalie. They're prenup. If she finds out about Tammy, Vincent loses everything. Craig's eyes glinted. And people who are desperate make mistakes. How do we get to the wife? We don't. We let Tammy do it for us. Craig pulled up a recording app on his phone. Emma has a tablet. I gave it to her for educational games, but it also has a recording function. Tammy doesn't know I can access the cloud backup. Jesse's eyes widened. You've been listening to their visits? Every single one. And 3 days ago, I heard something interesting. Tammy was on the phone with Vincent while Emma was in the next room. She was pushing him to leave Natalie, telling him they could be a family. Her, him, and Emma. Vincent's response? Craig played the audio. Vincent's voice was smooth, condescending. Baby, we've talked about this. When the timing is right. First, we need to secure custody. Then I'll handle Natalie. Your daughter is sweet. I think she'll adjust well to having a real father figure. The hairs on Jesse's neck stood up. That son of a... There's more. Craig fast-forwarded. Emma's small voice came through, talking to Tammy. I don't like Mr. Vincent, Mommy. He looks at me funny. Tammy's response was dismissive. Don't be silly, Emma. Vincent is going to be very important to us. You'll learn to appreciate him. Jesse's fists clenched. Craig, we need to get this to child services. It's not enough. Not yet. Looks at me funny isn't evidence. It's a child's feeling. But it tells me everything I need to know. Craig's voice was cold steel. Vincent Ryan wants my daughter in his life. And Tammy is so blinded by money and status that she's willing to hand Emma over to a predator. So what's the plan? Craig leaned back, his expression hardening into something Jesse had never seen before, a calculating determination that transformed his friend from a tired engineer into something more dangerous. We're going to give Tammy and Vincent exactly what they think they want, Craig said, and then we're going to burn their world down. Chapter 4. The Custody Hearing. The family courthouse was a gray, institutional building that smelled of floor wax and broken dreams. Craig sat beside Jeffrey in the courtroom, watching Tammy across the aisle with her expensive lawyer, Donnie Juarez. She wore a conservative dress, pearls, her makeup perfect, the picture of a concerned mother. Vincent wasn't in the courtroom. Too smart for that. Judge Harry Kruger, a stern man in his 60s with a reputation for no-nonsense rulings, called the court to order. This is a preliminary hearing regarding temporary custody arrangements for minor child Emma Valenzuela, he announced. Ms. Tammy Valenzuela is seeking primary physical custody with supervised visitation for the father, Mr. Craig Valenzuela. Donnie Juarez stood, his silver tongue ready. Your Honor, my client has grave concerns about Mr. Valenzuela's fitness as a parent. We have documented instances of his volatile temper, concerning behavior around the child, and an unstable work schedule that leaves Emma unsupervised for hours. Craig's jaw tightened, but Jeffrey put a calming hand on his arm. Mr. Valenzuela works as a mechanical engineer with a stable income and consistent hours, Jeffrey countered when it was his turn. He has been the primary caregiver for Emma since the separation, maintaining her routine, attending to her schooling, and providing a stable home environment. The hearing went back and forth for an hour. Tammy took the stand, tears welling perfectly on cue as she described her fears for Emma's well-being. He's just so angry all the time, Tammy said, her voice trembling. I worry about what happens when I'm not there to protect our daughter. Craig wanted to stand up and call her a liar, expose every manipulation. But he remained still, his expression neutral. This was the performance Jeffrey had prepared him for. When it was Craig's turn to testify, he spoke clearly and calmly, detailing his daily routine with Emma, his involvement in her life, his commitment to her well-being. Mr. Valenzuela, Donnie Juarez said during cross-examination, his voice dripping with false concern, isn't it true that you work 10-hour days, sometimes 6 days a week? I work standard 40-hour weeks, occasionally with overtime when necessary to provide for my daughter. And during these long hours, who watches Emma? She's in school during the day. Afterward, she goes to an accredited after-school program until I pick her up at 5:30. So strangers are raising your daughter while you're at work. Jeffrey objected, and the judge sustained it, but the damage was done. Juarez had planted the seed. Judge Kruger listened to both sides, reviewed the preliminary evidence, and made his ruling. Temporary joint custody will remain in effect. Ms. Valenzuela will have Emma Monday through Wednesday, Mr. Valenzuela Thursday through Sunday. Both parents will continue to have equal decision-making authority. We'll revisit this in 60 days for a more comprehensive hearing. It wasn't a loss, but it wasn't a win either. Craig watched Tammy smile smugly at her lawyer as they filed out of the courtroom. Outside, Jeffrey pulled Craig aside. Don't let this discourage you. Preliminary hearings almost always default to joint custody. The real battle is in 60 days. I know, Craig said quietly. That gives me time. Time for what? But Craig was already walking away, his mind 3 steps ahead. That evening, when Emma came home from school, she seemed more animated than she'd been in weeks. Daddy, guess what? We learn about butterfly life cycles today. She spread her artwork across the kitchen table, a colorful drawing of caterpillars transforming into butterflies. Craig smiled, genuinely for the first time all day. That's beautiful, princess. Tell me about it. As Emma explained metamorphosis with 6-year-old enthusiasm, Craig's phone buzzed. A message from Miranda. Got something. Call me. He waited until after Emma's bedtime to make the call. Vincent Ryan has a business partner, Miranda said without preamble. Samuel Barnett. They've been developing a luxury condo project together, but there's been friction. Barnett thinks Vincent is skimming money from the project. Is he? Probably, but that's not what matters. What matters is that Barnett is angry and looking for ammunition. He'd be very interested to know that Vincent is using company funds to finance a mistress's legal battle. Craig felt a slow smile spreading. Can you arrange a meeting? Already done. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. at Barnett's office. I told him you have information he'd find valuable. Miranda, you're worth every penny. I know. One more thing. Natalie Durham Ryan is hosting a charity gala next week. All of Pittsburgh society will be there. Vincent will be playing the devoted husband. How do we get an invitation? We don't, but I know someone who can get photos from inside the event. And I know someone else who can make sure those photos include some very interesting people. Craig understood. Set it up. The next afternoon, Craig met Samuel Barnett at his downtown office. Barnett was a compact man with sharp features and sharper eyes. Mr. Valenzuela, Miranda tells me you have information about my partner's extracurricular activities, Barnett said, skipping pleasantries. Craig laid out the evidence. Photos of Vincent with Tammy, financial records showing payments to Donnie Juarez coming from accounts Vincent controlled, documentation of a luxury apartment Vincent was keeping for Tammy. Barnett's expression grew darker with each revelation. Vincent is using our company as his personal piggy bank, Craig finished. And if his wife divorces him, your business partnership is going to implode in the legal fallout. What do you want from me? Barnett asked. Information. Evidence of Vincent's financial improprieties. And when the time comes, testimony about his character. Barnett considered this. Vincent Ryan has been bleeding our company dry for his lavish lifestyle. I've suspected it, but proving it is another matter. However, if you're giving me the excuse, I need to audit his activities. He smiled coldly. I think we can help each other. They shook hands, two men united by a common enemy. Chapter 5, The Trap. The next 3 weeks were a carefully orchestrated symphony of psychological warfare. Craig went to work, came home, cared for Emma, the picture of a devoted father maintaining routine. But beneath the surface, he was assembling pieces of a puzzle that would destroy Tammy and Vincent's plans. Miranda's surveillance had captured Vincent and Tammy at multiple locations. More importantly, she'd recorded conversations. Vincent reassuring Tammy that once custody was secured, they'd be one big, happy family. Tammy discussing how she'd limit Craig's visitation to the bare minimum. Vincent mentioning his connections in family court who could expedite things. But Craig needed more. He needed Emma's testimony, and he needed it to be genuine, powerful, and devastating. One evening, during his custody time, Craig sat with Emma in the living room. She was quieter than usual, pushing her dinner around her plate. "Princess, are you okay?" he asked gently. Emma looked up, her brown eyes troubled. "Daddy, do I have to go to Mommy's tomorrow?" Craig's heart clenched. "What's wrong, sweetheart? Mr. Vincent is there a lot now. He tries to be nice, but—" She trailed off, her small hands fidgeting with her napkin. "But what, Emma? You could tell me anything. He says things that make me uncomfortable, like calling me his little princess and wanting to tuck me in at bedtime. Mommy says I should be grateful, that he's going to be my new daddy, but I don't want a new daddy. I have you." Craig pulled Emma into his arms, fury and protective rage warring inside him. "Listen to me. You are my daughter, and nothing will change that. I need you to be brave for me, okay? Can you do that? What do I have to do? Just tell the truth. When the time comes, tell the truth about everything. Can you do that?" Emma nodded against his chest. That night, Craig made a decision that crossed several ethical and legal lines. He gave Emma her tablet back, with a new game installed, one that would record video and audio whenever certain keywords were mentioned. It was invasive, possibly illegal, but he was past caring about rules. His daughter's safety trumped everything. "This is a special app, Princess," he told her. "It's like a secret helper. It'll keep you safe." Within a week, the tablet had captured gold. Vincent, alone with Emma in Tammy's apartment while Tammy was showing a property, talking to the 6-year-old in a tone that made Craig's skin crawl. Nothing overtly criminal, but the subtle grooming behaviors were unmistakable to anyone who knew what to look for. Excessive physical affection, inappropriate comments about Emma becoming a beautiful young woman, attempts to create secrets between them. Craig showed the footage to Jeffrey. The lawyer's face went pale. Craig, this is explosive, but it's also possibly inadmissible. You recorded without consent in a private residence. I don't care about admissible. I care about protecting Emma. If we use this wrong, Tammy's lawyer will have it thrown out and paint you as paranoid and controlling. Then we don't use it in court. Not directly. Craig's eyes were cold. We use it as leverage. Leverage for what? For making Tammy destroy herself. Craig's plan was elegant in its simplicity. He had Jesse, whose computer skills were better than most people knew, create a dummy social media account. A concerned parent who'd heard about Vincent Ryan's interest in young children. The account started following Natalie Durham Ryan and some of her society friends, dropping subtle hints about Vincent's new girlfriend and her daughter. Simultaneously, Samuel Barnett began his audit of Vincent's business dealings, publicly and loudly, making sure word spread through Pittsburgh's business community. The pressure mounted from all sides. Vincent, feeling cornered, started making mistakes. He got sloppy with his movements, his phone calls. Miranda captured him meeting with a man who turned out to be a private investigator Vincent had hired to dig up dirt on Craig. Anything to bolster Tammy's case. But Craig was clean. Painfully, boringly clean. The worst Vincent's investigator could find was a speeding ticket from 3 years ago. Meanwhile, Craig fed information to Samuel Barnett about Vincent's expenditures, the apartment, the legal fees, expensive gifts for Tammy. Barnett used this in his audit, and suddenly Vincent was facing questions from the company's board of directors. The walls were closing in, and Vincent didn't even realize Craig was the one building them. At Emma's school, Craig became more visible, volunteering for field trips, attending PTA meetings, being present. Teachers commented on how engaged he was, how Emma lit up when she saw him. In contrast, Tammy missed parent-teacher conferences, was late for pickups, and when she did show up, was distracted by her phone, usually texting Vincent. Craig documented everything. 2 weeks before the comprehensive custody hearing, Natalie Durham-Ryan filed for divorce. The society pages exploded with the news, and with it came revelations about Vincent's affair with a younger woman with a child. Tammy's name wasn't mentioned, but everyone in their social circle knew. Tammy called Craig in a panic. "This is your fault. I don't know what you're talking about," Craig said calmly. "But I hope you've enjoyed your time with Vincent. I suspect it's about to get very expensive for him." "You bastard. You've been sabotaging us." "No, Tammy. I've been protecting our daughter from a predator you were too blinded by money to see. Enjoy your custody hearing." He hung up, satisfaction warming his chest for the first time in months. Chapter 6. The Unraveling. The week before the comprehensive custody hearing, Craig received an unexpected visitor at his home. It was late evening. Emma was already asleep. When he opened the door, Natalie Durham-Ryan stood on his porch, elegant even in distress, her designer clothes and perfect posture barely concealing the rage in her eyes. "Mr. Valenzuela, I believe we should talk." Craig let her in, offering coffee, which she declined. "I want to know everything," Natalie said, sitting ramrod straight on his modest couch. "About my husband and your wife." Craig studied her. "Why come to me?" "Because my lawyers are useless, concerned only with the financials. But you're fighting for your child. That tells me you understand what's really at stake." Her voice cracked slightly. "Vincent and I don't have children. I couldn't. But I know a predator when I see one, and the more I learn about his behavior around your daughter." Craig made a decision. He pulled out his tablet and showed her everything. The photos, the recordings, the documentation of Vincent's past sealed case. Natalie's face went from pale to furious to determined. "This man," she said slowly, "has been using my family's money, my reputation, to fund his sick fantasies. No more. What are you going to do? Why should I have done years ago? Destroy him." She stood, extending her hand. "Mr. Valenzuela, I'm going to be very frank. I'm going to take everything from Vincent in our divorce. But more than that, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man he is." "Ow!" Natalie smiled, and it was not kind. "My family has deep connections in this city. The university board, hospital boards, charitable organizations. By the time I'm done, Vincent won't be able to show his face in Pittsburgh. And if he's been using company funds, as you suggest, well, I know several prosecutors who owe my family favors." After Natalie left, Craig felt the first stirrings of hope. The enemy of his enemy was indeed proving to be a valuable ally. The next day, Tammy showed up at Craig's door, unannounced, during his custody time. "We need to talk," she demanded, pushing past him into the house. "Emma's upstairs doing homework," Craig said coldly. "Keep your voice down." Tammy's carefully maintained facade was cracking. Her makeup couldn't hide the stress, the sleepless nights. "Vincent is leaving. He's cutting me off. Said I'm too much liability now that his wife knows. That's what happens when you hitch your wagon to a coward. This is your fault. You turned his wife against him." "No, Tammy. Vincent's own actions did that. I just made sure the truth came to light." She pointed a finger at him, her voice rising. "You think you're so smart, so righteous. But I'm still going to win custody. I'm still Emma's mother. "You're a stranger playing dress-up as a mother," Craig said, his voice deadly quiet. "You chose money over your daughter. You brought a predator into her life. You coach her to lie about me. And you think a judge won't see through you." "I never. Emma's fine. Vincent never hurt her. Only because I didn't give him the chance. But the intent was there, and I have proof." Tammy's eyes widened. "You're bluffing." "Am I? Guess you'll find out in court." Craig moved to the door, opening it. "Get out of my house. If you want to see Emma, it'll be during your scheduled custody time, not a minute before." Tammy left, but not before Craig saw something dangerous in her eyes: desperation. He called Miranda immediately. "I need you to increase surveillance on Tammy. She's spiraling, and desperate people do stupid things." Miranda's prediction proved accurate 3 days later when Tammy attempted to pick Emma up from school outside of her custody time. The school, which Craig had pre-warned about potential issues, refused to release Emma and called him immediately. Craig arrived to find Tammy arguing with the principal, her composure completely shattered. "She's my daughter. I have a right to see her." "You have scheduled custody times," the principal, a firm woman named Hope House, said calmly. "This is not one of them. I'm going to have to ask you to leave school property, or I'll call the police." Tammy's eyes found Craig. "This is what you've done to me. Turned everyone against me." "You did this to yourself," Craig said. Then, in front of the principal and school secretary, he added, "Emma told me she's uncomfortable during her visits. That Vincent makes her feel unsafe. As her father, I have a duty to report that." It was a calculated risk going public with the accusation. But Craig needed witnesses to Tammy's instability. Tammy lunged toward him, but the principal stepped between them. "Ms. Valenzuela, leave now, or I will call the police." Tammy fled, and the principal looked at Craig with new understanding. "Mr. Valenzuela, I think you should document this incident, and perhaps we should discuss Emma's well-being." "Thank you," Craig said. "I appreciate your concern." That evening, Craig sat with Emma at the kitchen table. She'd been quiet since the school incident, picking at her dinner. "Princess, I need to tell you something," Craig said gently. "The judge is going to want to talk to you soon, about where you want to live, who you feel safe with." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I don't want to hurt Mommy's feelings." Craig's heart broke for his daughter, caught in an adult war. "Sweetheart, the most important thing is that you're safe and happy. Sometimes the truth hurts people's feelings, but telling the truth is always the right thing to do." "Will the judge listen to me?" "Yes. Judges care a lot about what children want, especially brave children who tell the truth." "Daddy, I'm scared." Craig pulled Emma into his lap, the way he had when she was a toddler. "I know, Princess, but I promise you, no matter what happens, I will always fight to keep you safe. Always." That night, after Emma was asleep, Craig reviewed his preparations. He had documentation of every instance of Tammy's instability, Vincent's inappropriate behavior, the affair, the financial manipulation, character witnesses from teachers and neighbors, and Emma's own recorded statements about feeling unsafe. But most importantly, he had the video Emma had inadvertently captured on her tablet, the smoking gun that would destroy Tammy's case. Jeffrey had finally agreed to use it, but only as a last resort. The judge needs to ask Emma directly if she has something to show him. If Emma volunteers the video herself, then it's admissible as her testimony. They'd rehearsed it carefully with Emma, never coaching her on what to say, only preparing her for the setting, the questions, the importance of truth. 3 days before the hearing, Craig received a final piece of good news from Samuel Barnett. Vincent Ryan had been formally removed from their company and was facing an investigation for embezzlement and fraud. The chess pieces were in position. All that remained was the final move. Chapter 7. Preparation. The night before the comprehensive custody hearing, Craig couldn't sleep. He stood in his garage workshop, the space where he'd always found peace, trying to calm the storm in his mind. Jesse found him there at 2 a.m., working on a small music box he was building for Emma. "You should be sleeping," Jesse said, handing him a beer. "Can't. Keep running through every scenario." Craig took the beer, but didn't drink. What if the judge doesn't believe Emma? What if Juarez finds a way to twist everything? Then you adapt. That's what you do, brother. You're the smartest guy I know. Jesse sat on a workbench. Remember freshman year, when we had that engineering professor who said you'd never make it? Said you didn't have the natural aptitude? Craig smiled slightly. Professor Henderson. You know what you did? You didn't argue. You didn't complain. You just worked harder than everyone else, learned everything inside and out, and ended up with the highest grade in the class. That's who you are, Craig. You see a problem, you solve it. This isn't a problem to be solved. This is my daughter's life. Exactly, which is why you've already won. Jesse's voice was firm. Tammy is fighting for pride, for money, for some fantasy life with a predator. You're fighting for Emma. That kind of motivation, that's unstoppable. After Jesse left, Craig went upstairs and stood in Emma's doorway, watching her sleep. She clutched her favorite stuffed rabbit, her face peaceful in a way it hadn't been in months. Tomorrow would change everything. The next morning, Craig dressed in his best suit. Not expensive, but clean and pressed. He helped Emma into the dress they'd picked out together. Something comfortable, but presentable. Remember, princess, he said, kneeling to her level. Just tell the truth. The judge is a nice man who wants to make sure you're happy and safe. Will Mommy be there? Yes. And her lawyer, and my lawyer, Mr. Neal. But you just focus on answering the judge's questions honestly. Emma nodded, her small hand gripping her tablet. Can I bring this? It helps me feel brave. Craig's heart swelled. Absolutely. At the courthouse, Jeffrey met them outside. Are you ready? As ready as I'll ever be. They entered the courtroom. Tammy was already there with Donnie Juarez, looking composed, but with an edge of desperation in her eyes. She'd brought no supporters, no character witnesses, a tactical error. Craig had brought Jesse, Emma's teacher, Mrs. Lynn Roberts, their neighbor Brandon Fields, who often saw Craig and Emma at the park, and his supervisor from work, Ernest Baxter, who could testify to his steady employment and character. Judge Kruger entered, and the hearing began. Juarez went first, calling Tammy to the stand. She presented herself as a concerned mother, tearfully recounting her fears about Craig's temper, his long work hours, his inability to provide the life Emma deserved. I just want my daughter to have opportunities, Tammy said, dabbing her eyes. To have stability, to have a mother who can be there for her. Ms. Valenzuela, Juarez said, can you describe Mr. Valenzuela's behavior during your marriage? He was always stressed about money. He'd come home angry, slam doors. Once he punched a wall after an argument. She looked at the judge. I was terrified of what he might do if I stayed. It was a masterful performance, and Craig felt his stomach tighten. But Jeffrey had prepared him for this. During cross-examination, Jeffrey was surgical. Ms. Valenzuela, you mentioned Mr. Valenzuela punched a wall. Were you or Emma ever physically harmed? Well, no, but... Yes or no, please? No. You mentioned his long work hours. What are your current work hours? Tammy hesitated. I work as needed. Real estate is flexible. According to your tax returns, you worked an average of 50 hours a week last year. Is that correct? I suppose. So you worked more hours than Mr. Valenzuela, yet you're criticizing his work schedule? It's different. How is it different, Ms. Valenzuela? The questioning continued, each answer revealing contradictions in Tammy's narrative. Then Jeffrey shifted gears. Ms. Valenzuela, are you currently in a relationship? Juarez objected, but the judge allowed it. I'm seeing someone, yes. Vincent Ryan? Her face paled. Yes. How long have you been seeing Mr. Ryan? A few months. According to phone records and witness statements, you've been seeing Mr. Ryan for approximately 8 months. That would predate your separation from Mr. Valenzuela by several months, correct? Tammy's composure cracked. It's not. It wasn't like that. Did you introduce Emma to Mr. Ryan? Yes, but only after. Has Mr. Ryan spent time alone with Emma? Sometimes, but it's innocent. Jeffrey pulled out a document. Your Honor, I'd like to submit evidence of Mr. Vincent Ryan's prior sealed case involving allegations of inappropriate conduct with a minor child. Juarez shot to his feet. Objection. Sealed records are inadmissible. I'm not submitting the sealed records, Your Honor. I'm submitting the existence of a case as it relates to Ms. Valenzuela's judgment in introducing Emma to this individual. Judge Kruger considered. I'll allow it for context. The revelation hung in the courtroom like a bomb. Tammy looked stricken. Ms. Valenzuela, were you aware of Mr. Ryan's past case? I know. Vincent said it was a misunderstanding. But you didn't verify this before allowing him unsupervised access to your daughter? Silence. Jeffrey let it hang, then returned to his seat. Next, Craig took the stand. He spoke calmly about his routine with Emma, his involvement in her life, his commitment to her well-being. He presented pay stubs showing steady employment, bank statements showing responsible finances, testimonials from teachers and neighbors. Juarez tried to rattle him during cross-examination, but Craig remained composed, turning every accusation back with facts. Mr. Valenzuela, isn't it true you hired a private investigator to spy on your wife? I hired an investigator to ensure my daughter's safety after noticing concerning changes in her behavior. Isn't that paranoid? Is it paranoid to protect your child from a man with a history of inappropriate conduct with minors? The character witnesses followed, each painting a picture of Craig as a devoted, stable, present father. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Judge Kruger looked at Emma, who sat in the front row clutching her tablet. Emma, would you like to come talk to me? He asked gently. Emma looked at Craig, who nodded encouragingly. She walked to the witness stand, so small she had to sit on a booster seat. Hi, Emma. I'm Judge Kruger. I know this is scary, but I just want to ask you some questions, okay? Just tell the truth. Okay, Emma said in a small voice. Who do you live with now? I go back and forth. Some days with Mommy, some days with Daddy. How do you feel about that? Emma's eyes welled up. I don't like going to Mommy's anymore. Why not, sweetheart? Because Mr. Vincent is there, and he makes me feel weird. Tammy half rose from her seat, but Juarez pulled her back down. Weird how? The judge asked gently. He tries to be nice, but it doesn't feel right. He calls me princess and wants to hug me a lot. Mommy says I should like him, but I don't. Judge Kruger's expression darkened. Has Mr. Vincent ever touched you inappropriately? I don't know what that means. Has he touched you in a way that made you uncomfortable? He gives me lots of hugs and tries to kiss my forehead. Daddy only hugs me when I want hugs. I see. Emma, if you could choose, where would you want to live? Emma's voice was clear. With Daddy. I always feel safe with Daddy. This was the moment. Craig watched his daughter, this brave little girl, and saw her take a breath. Can I show you something money doesn't know? Emma asked the judge. The courtroom went silent. Judge Kruger looked surprised. What do you mean, Emma? I have something on my tablet. Daddy says I should always tell the truth, and I recorded the truth. Jeffrey stood. Your Honor, the child has evidence she'd like to present. Juarez objected. This is highly irregular. The child is requesting to present evidence, Judge Kruger said. I'm going to allow it. Emma, what do you have? Emma handed her tablet to the bailiff, who brought it to the judge. There's a video from when I was at Mommy's apartment. Chapter 8, the video. Judge Kruger took the tablet, his expression serious. I'm going to review this, and then we'll discuss it. He pressed play. The courtroom was silent except for the audio from the tablet. Emma's voice came through first, followed by Vincent's smooth tones. Emma, why don't you come sit next to me on the couch? We can watch a movie together. I want to wait for Mommy. Your Mommy trusts me to take care of you. That means we should get to know each other better. You're going to be my little girl soon. I already have a daddy. Craig won't be around much longer. Your Mommy and I are going to make sure of that. You'll see, once the judge decides, you'll live with us all the time. And I'll teach you so many things. The video continued, showing Vincent trying to coax Emma to sit on his lap. Emma politely but firmly refusing, Vincent's frustration growing. Then came Tammy's voice as she entered the apartment. Vincent, I told you to wait for me before spending time with Emma. Relax. We were just bonding. She looks uncomfortable. She's 6. She'll adjust. Besides, after the hearing, Craig will be lucky to see her once a month. Then we can really start our life together. What about Natalie? Natalie's a problem that's being handled. My lawyer found a loophole in the prenup. Even if she divorces me, I'll be fine. And once Emma's custody is settled, we'll have leverage against Craig for anything we want. I just want this over with. I want Craig out of our lives. He will be. Trust me. Judge Kruger's face had gone from serious to thunderous. He stopped the video and looked at Tammy, whose face had lost all color. Ms. Valenzuela, is this video authentic? I didn't know she was recording. That's not what I asked. Is this conversation authentic? Tammy looked at Juarez, who was frantically whispering in her ear. Finally, she whispered yes. Juarez stood. Your Honor, I request a recess to consult with my client. Request denied. Sit down, Mr. Juarez. The judge's voice was ice. Emma, thank you for being so brave. You can go sit with your daddy now. Emma ran to Craig, who held her tight, tears streaming down his face. Judge Kruger continued. In my 23 years on the bench, I have never seen such a clear-cut case of parental manipulation and poor judgment. Ms. Valenzuela, you introduced your daughter to a man with a history of concerning behavior with minors. You allowed him unsupervised access to Emma despite her obvious discomfort. You actively planned to limit her father's access to her, not for her well-being, but for your own convenience. Your Honor, please, Tammy started, but the judge held up his hand. I'm not finished. This video shows conspiracy to manipulate custody proceedings, emotional manipulation of a child, and what appears to be the beginning of grooming behavior from Mr. Ryan. Where's Mr. Ryan, by the way? He's not. He's not involved in this case, Juarez said weakly. He's very much involved. Bailiff, I want Mr. Vincent Ryan subpoenaed immediately. I also want Child Protective Services notified about this video. Juarez stood again. Your Honor, my client has been under tremendous stress. She made poor judgment calls, but her love for her daughter. Her love. Judge Kruger's voice rose. Love doesn't put a child in danger. Love doesn't prioritize a romantic relationship over a child's safety. Love doesn't coach a child to lie about a fit parent. He turned to Craig. Mr. Valenzuela, I'm granting you full physical custody of Emma, effective immediately. Ms. Valenzuela will have supervised visitation only once per week for 2 hours, pending a full psychological evaluation and completion of parenting classes. Furthermore, I'm ordering that Vincent Ryan have no contact with a minor child whatsoever. If Ms. Valenzuela violates this order, visitation will be terminated entirely. Tammy let out a sob. You can't do this. She's my daughter. She's a child who deserves to be protected, and you've proven yourself incapable of that duty. Judge Kruger's gavel came down. This court is adjourned. The courtroom erupted. Juarez was arguing with Tammy, who was crying. Jeffrey was shaking Craig's hand, congratulating him. But Craig only had eyes for Emma, who was clinging to him. Daddy, did I do good? You did perfect, princess. So perfect. As they left the courtroom, Craig saw Tammy slumped in her chair, Juarez gathering papers with barely concealed disgust. Her lawyer looked at her with contempt. I told you this would backfire, Juarez hissed, loud enough for Craig to hear. I'm withdrawing from this case. He walked out, leaving Tammy alone. Craig should have felt triumph, but all he felt was exhaustion and relief. He'd won, but the cost had been enormous. Outside the courthouse, Jeffrey pulled Craig aside. You did it. Against all odds. Emma did it, Craig corrected. She was the brave one. The video. How did you know she'd have it? Craig smiled slightly. I gave her the tablet. I taught her how to record. But what she chose to record, what she chose to show, that was all her. I never told her to make that video. She just knew to document the truth. Jeffrey shook his head in admiration. You're a strategic genius. I'm just a father who refused to lose his daughter. As they walked to the car, Emma between them, Craig's phone buzzed. A message from Miranda. Vincent Ryan was arrested an hour ago. Embezzlement, fraud, and now they're investigating him for child endangerment based on the video. Natalie sends her regards. Craig smiled. The final pieces were falling into place. Chapter 9. Aftermath. 3 months later, Craig stood in his backyard, watching Emma play in the treehouse he'd built. The autumn leaves were turning gold and red, and the air had that crisp quality that promised winter wasn't far behind. Life had slowly returned to normal, or rather, a new normal. Tammy attended her supervised visits sporadically. The first few times, she tried to talk to Emma about the court case, about how she missed her, but Emma's responses were polite and distant. The bond had been broken, and Craig wasn't sure it would ever fully heal. Vincent Ryan was facing serious legal troubles. The embezzlement charges had stuck thanks to Samuel Barnett's thorough audit and Natalie's willingness to provide evidence. The investigation into his behavior with Emma was ongoing, and word had spread throughout Pittsburgh society. He was a pariah, his business ruined, his reputation destroyed. Natalie had sent Craig a thank you note and a generous check, which he deposited into Emma's college fund. For the brave girl who exposed a monster, the note had read, Jeffrey had become a friend, occasionally stopping by for dinner. He'd waived a significant portion of his fees, saying, some cases are about more than money. This was one of them. Jesse remained Craig's closest confidant, the brother he'd never had by blood but had earned through loyalty. At work, Ernest Baxter had given Craig a promotion, not out of pity, but because Craig's dedication and skill had always been evident. The raise meant Craig could finally take Emma on the trip to Disney World she'd always dreamed about. But the real change was in Emma herself. She was smiling again, laughing, bringing home artwork from school that showed bright colors instead of dark scribbles. She'd started calling Craig's house home without qualification. One evening, as Craig tucked her into bed, Emma looked up at him with serious eyes. Daddy, why did Mommy stop loving us? It was the question Craig had been dreading. He sat on the edge of her bed, choosing his words carefully. Sometimes, princess, people get lost. They forget what's really important. Your mommy got lost for a while, looking for things she thought would make her happy. Money, excitement, a different life. But those things aren't what make people happy. Love makes people happy. Family makes people happy. Do you think she'll find her way back? Craig thought about Tammy, who'd lost everything. Her daughter's trust, her relationship with Vincent, her reputation. He'd heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd moved to a smaller apartment, was struggling financially, seemed diminished. He could have felt vindicated, but instead, he just felt sad for the woman she'd been before ambition and vanity had poisoned her. I don't know, sweetheart, but that's not your job to worry about. Your job is to be a kid, to play, to learn, to be happy. I'll take care of the rest. Will you ever get married again? Craig smiled. Maybe someday, if I meet someone who loves you as much as I do. Okay, but they have to be nice and make good pancakes. Those are excellent requirements. After Emma fell asleep, Craig went to his workshop. He was finishing the music box for her intricate piece that played her favorite lullaby. Working with his hands had always calmed his mind, and tonight he needed the piece. His phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Mr. Valenzuela? A woman's voice, hesitant. This is Patty Moyer. I'm an attorney representing your ex-wife. Craig's guard went up immediately. What can I do for you? Ms. Valenzuela would like to discuss potentially modifying the custody arrangement. She's completed her parenting classes and psychological evaluation. She's asking for unsupervised visitation, 2 weekends a month. Craig was quiet for a long moment. What does Emma want? I'm sorry. Has anyone asked Emma what she wants? Well, no, but then the answer is no. When Tammy can prove that she's put Emma's needs before her own, when Emma feels safe enough to ask for more time with her mother, then we'll talk. Until then, the court order stands. Mr. Valenzuela, surely you can see that some compassion. Ms. Moyer, compassion is what keeps me from seeking to terminate Tammy's parental rights entirely. Compassion is what allows those supervised visits to continue. But I will not compromise my daughter's well-being for anyone's convenience. Good night. He hung up, his hand shaking slightly. The war might be over, but the occasional battle still flared up. A week later, Craig was at the park with Emma, pushing her on the swings, when he noticed a woman watching them from a nearby bench. She was in her mid-30s, with kind eyes and an easy smile, reading a book while occasionally glancing up at a young boy playing on the monkey bars. Their eyes met, and she smiled. Craig smiled back. "Higher, Daddy," Emma shouted, and Craig returned his attention to his daughter, launching her toward the sky. When they finished, the woman approached. "Your daughter is adorable. She looks so happy." "She is," Craig said. "We both are." "I'm Jenny," the woman said, extending her hand. "Jenny Erickson. That's my son, Brandon." She pointed to the boy on the monkey bars. Craig Valenzuela. "Nice to meet you." They talked for a few minutes, Easy conversation about parenting and the park and the weather. Emma and Brandon started playing together, and Craig found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't in years. "Maybe we'll see you here again sometime," Jenny said as they prepared to leave. "Yeah," Craig said. "Maybe you will." As he and Emma walked home, hand in hand, Craig realized something fundamental had shifted. For months, he'd been fighting for custody, fighting against Tammy and Vincent, fighting to protect Emma. But the fight was over. He'd won. Now came the harder part, building a new life, healing the wounds, teaching Emma that trust and love were still possible. "Daddy, I like the park," Emma said, swinging their joined hands. "Me too, princess. Can we come back next week?" "Absolutely. And can we have pancakes tomorrow?" Craig laughed, the sound free and genuine. "Definitely." That night, after Emma was asleep, Craig sat in his living room with a beer, Jesse beside him. "So what's next for you?" Jesse asked. Craig considered the question. "I don't know. For so long, everything was about the custody battle. Now that it's over, I need to figure out what normal looks like. Normal looks like being a dad, which you've always been, even when Tammy was trying to take that away from you." "I met someone at the park today," Craig admitted. "Just a friendly conversation, but it felt nice to talk to someone who doesn't know the whole messy story." "You deserve that, brother. You deserve to be happy." "I am happy. I have Emma. That's enough." "Maybe, but it's okay to want more too." Craig smiled. "Yeah, maybe it is." They sat in comfortable silence, two friends who'd weathered a storm together and come out stronger. In the weeks that followed, Craig saw Jenny at the park several more times. They started meeting intentionally, letting the kids play while they talked. She was a widow, her husband having died in a car accident 3 years prior. She understood loss, understood rebuilding. Craig didn't rush anything. He was cautious, protective of Emma's heart and his own. But slowly, gently, he allowed himself to open up to the possibility of something new. 6 months after the custody hearing, Craig received notification that Vincent Ryan had been sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for embezzlement. The investigation into his behavior with Emma hadn't resulted in charges. Not enough evidence. But his reputation was permanently destroyed. Tammy had moved to Ohio, working as a real estate agent in a small town. Her supervised visits had dwindled to once a month, then stopped altogether. Emma didn't ask about her much anymore. It should have felt like victory, but Craig just felt a profound sadness for all the damage that had been done. 1 year after the hearing, Craig proposed to Jenny. Emma helped pick out the ring and was the first person they told. "Does this mean Brandon will be my brother?" Emma asked, eyes wide with excitement. "Sort of," Jenny said, kneeling to Emma's level. "If that's okay with you. Can we still have daddy-daughter days?" Craig pulled Emma into a hug. "Always, princess. That will never change." The wedding was small, intimate, held in the backyard where Craig had built Emma's treehouse. Jeffrey officiated, Jesse was the best man, and Emma was the flower girl. As Craig stood at the altar, watching Jenny walk toward him with Brandon at her side, he thought about the journey that had led him here. The pain, the betrayal, the fight. But also the strength he'd discovered, the bonds he'd forged, the absolute certainty that he would move mountains to protect those he loved. Tammy wasn't at the wedding. Craig had sent an invitation, a final gesture of grace, but she hadn't responded. He hoped, somewhere, she'd found peace. But more importantly, he'd found his own. As he and Jenny exchanged vows, Emma and Brandon standing beside them, Craig realized that sometimes the best revenge wasn't destruction. It was building something better from the ashes. The sun set over the backyard, casting golden light across the celebration. Emma laughed, running with Brandon, her joy uncomplicated and pure. Craig had won more than a custody battle. He'd won the chance to be the father Emma deserved, to build a family based on love and trust rather than manipulation and lies. And in the end, that was the only victory that mattered. Epilogue. 5 years later, Craig stood in that same backyard, now expanded with a larger deck and a second treehouse. Emma was 11, Brandon was 9, and their baby sister, Lily Erickson Valenzuela, was 2 years old, toddling around the yard with determined steps. Jeffrey and his wife were over for a barbecue, along with Jesse and his girlfriend. Miranda had sent a card but couldn't make it. She was in Europe, working a case. Dad, Emma called from the treehouse. Brandon says I can't come up because it's a boys' club. Brandon, Craig called back. What did we say about that? Brandon's head popped out. Sorry. Come on up, Emma. Craig smiled, flipping burgers on the grill. Jenny came up behind him, sliding her arms around his waist. Happy? She asked. More than I ever thought possible, he admitted. In the distance, his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I heard about your wedding. About your new family. I'm glad you're happy. I'm sorry for everything. T. Craig read it twice, then deleted it. That chapter was closed. He looked at his family, Emma and Brandon in the treehouse, Lily chasing a butterfly, Jenny beside him, friends gathered around. This was what mattered. This was worth fighting for. And he'd won.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you